Welcome to the channel. This video is going to be about load carriage equipment, specifically military webbing. Now when we think about military webbing these days, we tend to think about tactical kit, MOLLE gear, and we're all familiar with the look of MOLLE gear. It's the one which has got the horizontal 25mm straps sewn across the front of the base, whether that is a plate carrier base or an armor carrying vest base, rucksack, perhaps a chest rig, or a skeletal webbing system which has a recognizable harness and belt with MOLLE webbing sewn across the front of those. If you think about it though, MOLLE webbing is actually optimized for things like plate carriers and armor vests, because the idea behind those is that you're wearing a piece of armor, so a plate across the front or plate combined with soft armor panels, and so you want to cover as much of the body as possible. And in order to increase the utility of this vest, then it is a good idea to put some MOLLE webbing across the front so that you can also attach pouches that carry load at various points all over the body. But if you were to strip it all back to just the webbing, then MOLLE is actually not as useful as it first appears, because it does actually add bulk. In order to have the most modularity on a MOLLE system, then you're going to have wider belts. So for example, cummerbund style hip pads with 3 MOLLE webbing strips across. The backs of the yokes might actually be extended, so covering the whole of the back in order to be able to add wider hydration carriers or whatever comms gear you might have to put on the back. So ultimately, in order to maximize where you can place your load on a MOLLE vest, you basically are trying to cover as much of the body with MOLLE as possible. And when it comes to pure load carriage, that is more of a disadvantage than an advantage. Militaries are going largely back to webbing. Body armor is only issued to people on operations which have a specific need for body armor. So for instance, patrols in areas where you're likely to encounter contact frequently, of course that would make sense to have body armor and a MOLLE vest which can carry that body armor. But if you're just going on exercise, on a bivouac or an extended hike, and all you need is load carriage, then webbing is really a far better answer than MOLLE. And the reason for that is webbing really is just stripped straight back to the fundamentals. A belt with some pouches for the carriage of the load, and shoulder straps, so that helps to distribute the load over the shoulders, and it also prevents the belt from swinging left to right. I've got 2 webbing systems with me here, the German one and the British one. This takes us back to the 1990s, and the 1990s are interesting because that's the end of the Cold War, and it coincides with many militaries having a revamp of their load carriage systems and generally how they equip the soldier. Many of the systems were based largely around the needs of a conscript army. So for instance, the British Army was still using Pattern 58, which was developed at a time when Britain still had national service. Pattern 58 was a canvas-based system. It had belt, shoulder straps, kidney pouches on the front for your ammunition or utilities, and a rucksack that could be attached to the shoulder straps on the rear. The hallmark of systems like this was that it was very generalized and completely not customizable. The idea, again, you had lots of conscripts, they needed one mass set of training in how to use this kit. They weren't expected to personalize it, they were all going to be issued the same stuff, and so they were all expected to use it in pretty much exactly the same way. Disadvantages of Pattern 58, for example, would include the fact that being cotton, or cotton canvas, if it got wet, it became very heavy and it became very hard to dry. By the time you get to the 1990s, the advantages of cotton canvas had been truly superseded by Cordura nylon. So it made perfect sense when looking at revamping the equipment to also see what the latest materials were that could be used, that would lighten the load, that would be quick drying, that could provide waterproofing, damp proofing, all in one layer without having to add extra bulk. Since then, there's been a general idea of continuous development, but back to the mid-90s, and the Germans took their old 70s kit and they basically went completely back to the drawing board. And they had a look at what was out there. Now, interestingly enough, the Canadian kit from 1982 was a bit of a hybrid of the Alice strapping system and the kit that the Germans eventually settled on, which was this riveted eyelet system on the belt. Now, the riveted eyelets are specifically of a type that are available commercially just about anywhere. They're standard sizing. And the idea behind that is that if something fails, let's say one of these pops off or something, then somebody should be able to go out and get replacement parts and fix their own kit at a minimum of fuss. The eyelets are placed evenly along the length of the belt, and they're also placed on the back of the shoulder straps. This is the German system is a very skeletal system with no additional padding, and also on the front of the shoulders. Now, the idea behind the equal spacing is that pouches would be fitted with an adapter plate. This is plastic, and it consists of a plate which is quite rigid on the body, and this semi-rigid portion here that can be folded up. And if you have a look at it, it's got these 4 protrusions which correspond exactly with the spacings on the riveted eyelets on the belt and on the shoulder harness. And by using a levering sort of hooking system on the top rivets and just a protrusion with a cutaway for this keyhole style portion of the plate, then this could be folded up, pushed upwards in place and retained at the bottom with these slight cutaways at the bottom. I have here a water bottle pouch which has got the plate riveted on directly onto the back of the pouch. That helps to save weight. So you can see they're exactly the same. And in order to fit it onto the belt, you locate any point on the belt or on the shoulder harness for that matter, and then you simply hook it in from the top. Make sure that the plastic is pressed firmly in through the eyelets like that, and you'll see that the bottom protrusions fit perfectly into the corresponding riveted eyelets. And then, using the semi-rigid portion, bend that back over, and then you simply press into place using the keyhole system to keep the plate from popping out. And that can't be undone other than by specifically applying pressure to those points. And in this way, the pouch is fixed onto the belt, and the contents, therefore, secure on the belt. This system prevents the pouches from sliding back and forth or left to right on the belt or on the shoulder harness. And it also has the advantage that pouches can be placed at any point on the belt. So it's actually highly customizable, and it presents huge advantages because somebody who's been assigned, for instance, the task of guarding a facility might be issued with an MP5. At that stage, they need magazine pouches for an MP5 magazine, not for a G3 or G36 magazine. With a system like this, that person could be issued a pouch specifically for use with MP5 magazines and could attach it onto the kit without having to carry any additional pouches that they actually didn't need. So the German system was pretty much redesigned from the bottom up. It made extensive use of nylon materials. The belt might look like standard canvas, but it is actually quick drying nylon as well. And very little of the system uses specialized materials. So apart from the adapter plates, which are specialized, buckles are all 25mm. Buttons are available everywhere. And of course, the core of the system, the riveted eyelets, are standard size. The German webbing system has a shoulder harness that fixes on to the belt at 4 points, which are sewn directly onto the belt, and adjustment is through these plastic sliders. They're quite sturdy because of the number of times you've got to loop the strapping in and out. But it's also fairly minimal. They don't give you much more strapping than the average person would need. By reducing the amount of extra strapping, it also helped to reduce the weight of this system. The other advantage of the German system is, provided you have one of these adapter plates, you can take a non-standard or non-rake pouch, so this is for a phone or a small radio, and because it's fitted with a piece or a loop of 50mm webbing across the back sewn horizontally, it means that the adapter plate can just be slid inside, and then all of a sudden you've got another fully functioning pouch that can work with the German system. The British system is a bit of a hybrid of the old thinking and new thinking. Called PLCE, or Personal Load Carrying Equipment, it made extensive use of nylon materials. So for instance, this Cordura nylon for the pouch face, and also nylon for the belt itself. It also had a padded shoulder harness, all enclosed inside a piece of Cordura on the outside and mesh on the inside. It made use of nylon mesh for ventilation on the back. It also made extensive use of plastic sliders for adjustment. Where it relied a little bit on older style thinking was, for instance, the design of the belt. A standard 50mm wide belt, but it has to be made with an integrated layer of nylon on the inside, which provides loops. This is actually woven in. It's not sewn, it's not stitched, so this is actually a specialized manufacture. And the purpose of the loops is so that the pouches, which are fitted with additional parts, will not slide up and down on the belt. And let me show you what I mean. So here's a utility pouch, and I've only partially mounted it on the belt. Inside these fully opening belt loops, remember these wider belt loops are sliding ones, and so they don't open at all, but these ones do open. You can see that they're fitted with a T, and the T slides into the provided loop on the belt, and there are two of them. So this is what it looks like. When these are inserted, when you're finished, then you have to close up the open belt loop and just close it in place with a snap button below. This combination of fixed strap, which is a bit too wide admittedly for the belt, so one on either side, and also these enclosed belt loops with the T's, ensure that the pouch is actually fixed on by at least 4 points, and with the T's the pouch can't slide back and forth on the belt anymore, which is demonstrated by this ammo pouch, which is actually fixed on properly. Minimal movement there. Another element of old thinking in the PLCE system that harks back to the pattern 58 is the way the shoulder straps are fixed onto the belt. Now, on the back of the belt are two attachment points for the rear straps, and you can see they're sewn straight on and they're not movable at all. That's much like the German system, where the 4 points of the German system are sewn on and can't be moved. However, In the front, the shoulder straps actually don't fix onto the belt at all. They fix onto the pouches by means of these metal plates. And the metal plates have got a horizontal cut in them, and they also have this triangular arrangement. And the triangular arrangement is because you actually get 6 straps from the shoulder strap assembly. So you have the 2 in the rear, which are here, but you also get an additional 2 set at a bit of an angle coming off the sides, and of course you get the 2 in the front. You actually get 2 mounting points on the pouch itself. And so while the first one, the front one, that goes to the front strap, helps to keep the load from dropping, this additional mounting point actually helps to stabilize the entire system. When you look at it, the system tends to wrap around the body, which makes for a very stable load. So in terms of comfort and load distribution, the PLCE system is actually pretty good, just because you have not only support but also stabilization. However, it does lose flexibility insofar as without any pouches on the front, there is no way of fixing the shoulder straps firmly to the belt. In order to address this, the British military came up with what they call a V to T. So you have just a little belt loop with the T on there that you can attach onto the belt. It provides you with a V which lets you thread the shoulder straps through, and this fixes onto the belt at any point, buttons tight, and so that's a little adapter loop for use with the British PLCE system. So that's a little bit of a rundown of British and German military webbing. The British are actually going back to this webbing system, not for operations. People on operations still get body armour, and so they will still tend to use MOLLE systems. You can see here it is actually being issued in MTP, the current British camouflage. And in fact, this yoke itself has a date of, or year of manufacture of 2017, and the pouch has year of manufacture of 2015. To sum up, webbing might be seen as a little bit of an old school approach to load carriage, but if you actually don't really need body armour, then wearing a MOLLE vest is probably going to contribute far more to your overheating or being overburdened with heavy gear as opposed to a webbing system like this. It's very well ventilated, and through the use of nylon materials and plastic on tape technologies, the load of the actual system is reduced quite efficiently. You can go for a system like this, the British system, which is very comfortable and is very stable, or you can go for a system like this, the German system, which has a high degree of modularity. You can always get yourself some adapter plates and make some. For the purpose for which it's designed, it's still very difficult to beat a military webbing system. I hope you found that interesting, and bye bye for now. Bye bye.